Alright, it is that time. Today is April 17th, 2025, and we've been having some warm days recently, and it's gotten up to 78 degrees in our house several times, or a couple times, but we haven't turned it on because it was just going to cool down again. And it is going to cool down after this. There's a high that's like 50 again after today, but we're kind of tired of having a warm house, so we are going to do the first startup of the Tempstar, and we're just going to run it a little bit to cool it down, because tonight's low is like 45 or something, but it's hot in the house now. It's 77 currently, but it may go up to 78 pretty soon. And it feels warm in there, and multiple of us are hot, so it is time to do the first startup of the air conditioner. Yeah, as I said, it's not going to be able to stay on cool. We'll probably have to turn on the heat again after this, but that's always how it is. So we're going to run it to cool down the house for the night, and then we'll probably end up having to turn the heat back on. But yeah, this is going to be the first startup of the year of my Tempstar. So there's the data sheet, 1995, 3-ton CA55, 5000 series, Copeland recip, trying to show the compressor. It's somewhere down there. So yeah, I will do my thermostat view as always over the screen, and I'll do my 3-angle thing because you guys seem to like that, so try not to yap anymore. So here we go. Tempstar is going to come on for the first time in 2025. Hasn't ran since October probably. Alright, here we go. Alright, it went up to 78. Alright, she's on. Getting warm. Hear the compressor getting the juices flowing. This is starting to get cold. It always takes it a while when it hasn't ran in months. That's already warm though. But yeah, a little bit cold. Shaky as always. Tried to straighten the blades once and it held, but nothing you can do to permanently, like, make it perfect again. Air conditioning's on. It's currently a storm to my north, but luckily it's not hitting us, so I'm able to make this video. I will probably clean it sometime this year. getting there. take a minute to enjoy that compressor sound. Roaring Copeland. Getting colder. I found out last year that this thing is a little bit low in refrigerant, but don't freak out. It is not leaking. It's been like this ever since we've moved in here. We've only had it serviced once when it broke down shortly after we moved here, and it hasn't been serviced professionally since, so the charge hasn't been messed with since. Of course I maintain it, but I haven't messed with the charge. So it was just a charging error from whoever adjusted the charge last, and it cools fine. The cooling is not impacted, but how I figured that out is this suction line doesn't get as cold as it's supposed to, and rarely ever sweats. You know how when you feel the suction line of a normally working air conditioner, it's cold and sweaty, no matter the humidity outside, unless it's super dry. But mine is never quite as cold. Ooh, you hear it building pressure. And the suction line is starting to get colder, so yeah. Anyway, the suction line is usually just a few degrees warmer than it should be, and it does not sweat unless it's like 80% humidity or above. So that means there's not quite enough refrigerant in the system for the refrigerant to come back to the compressor cold enough to make it sweat, but it's not enough to impact the performance of the system. It still functions normally. There's just not quite enough refrigerant in it that there's enough left over to still come back normally cold. It absorbs too much heat, but it's not a problem. The compressor has never overheated. It gets cold enough, just not what you would expect. So that's why this rarely sweats. It's always cold, but not sweaty, and that is why. But it is not leaking. You can hear the compressor building up pressure. It's getting more growly. Sorry for talking all out there. I was just explaining something. So yeah, this thing's getting the refrigerant flowing, and it's getting down to business. That's hot. It's really hot. I forgot to mention it's about 86 degrees out here right now. So yeah. I know I don't upload a ton of content on this unit, but the suction line is almost never sweaty. It's just cold, but it doesn't sweat unless it's super humid out, and that's because it's probably just a few ounces low on refrigerant. It's nothing serious, which we're not going to call up company over that because it works fine. And if this thing's still around when I get my EPA license and everything, if I'm able to get my hands on some R22, I may top it off. But for now, nothing's going to change. Alright, I'll go inside and look at the furnace, I guess, and maybe do a couple temp checks.
Yeah, perfect.
Back down to 77 already. Here's the furnace, which will probably run again before the end of the season. It's gonna drop down into the 40s again. That is cold, and that is warm. Temperature feels the same on both sides. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this either, but this is not the original evaporator coil. It was replaced in 2013 according to the records, and it's an aluminum coil. got a new temp probe recently, so I'll use that for the temperature checks. My arm's getting tired and it's still dropping, but right now I've got about 70 out here. This is upstairs. I'm starting upstairs. It's dropping still, 69. But my arm's tired, so I'm gonna stop for now. Oh no, I'll go downstairs. Alright, here's the vent closest to the furnace. This has been in here for a couple minutes now. About 61. Taking in about 70, let's call it 77 or 78 degree air on average, because it's taking in air from all three levels, so yeah, about 61. Temp drop it makes is relatively normal. It's just the suction line doesn't get quite cold enough to sweat outside. So yeah, about 61 out of this vent. Alright, here's one last look at the condenser before I end this video. It's been on maybe 10 or 15 minutes, so should be built up to pretty much normal pressures now. Nice warm air. That's pretty cold. Just it's not gonna sweat, but yeah, pretty cold. Yep. 1995 Tempstar first startup for the cooling season 2025. Sounds good. This thing's a solid unit. Just keeps on going. So yeah, here's to another, hopefully, successful cooling season. It's just been working. It's just never had a problem since we moved in here, and that was a loose wire in the furnace. So this condenser never had an issue since we lived here. All right, hope you enjoyed first startup of my air conditioner for 2025. Working good as always. All right, hope you enjoy. Out.